I'm Natasha Shine-Zirkle. I am the vertical group manager for the business verticals. I'm also responsible for everything relating to e-commerce here. So happy that you could join us to talk about how to create, launch, and promote your e-commerce business. We have lots of different people joining us from all over the world, as you can see. So whether you have an existing online store, whether you're looking to open a new dropshipping business, or if you have a physical store and now you're looking to bring your products from offline to online, we have been sure to include something for everyone here. We're recording the session, you can see that on the top left, and we're going to send that to you within a few days. We've also prepared a guide to help you through your journey, as well as a list of services that can be useful to you. So watch out for that email, and feel free to send it and forward it to any friends or colleagues that you know that you think it would be helpful for. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our awesome speaker for today, Damiano. He is a Fiverr pro seller. He is the founder and CEO of Startup Slang. It's an e-commerce agency that serves more than 900 businesses, and I'm thrilled for us to get started. So please take us away, Damiano.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming, everyone. I really appreciate your time today. Hopefully, I'll be able to tell you a little bit about e-commerce and share some value and some knowledge about this. Like Natasha said, first of all, thank you, Natasha, for introducing me. And like Natasha said, I am the founder and CEO of Startup Slang, and I started off on Fiverr, and so all of the experience that I have, it pretty much came from helping all of those 900 clients kind of grow, and our company has grown pretty substantially over the last 3 years. We're now a team of 33 here in downtown Toronto, servicing over 900 clients, like Natasha said. So I would like to just jump right into it, into the good stuff. So first things first, why e-commerce and why now? I think if you are, especially if you are an existing business, but even if you are somebody that's new to e-commerce, you're looking to get started, you definitely want to look at the current state of affairs and how e-commerce is being used by most people. And obviously, I'll go through a lot of that stuff later on in the presentation, but I kind of wanted to mention that here at the beginning, just so you guys can see the type of opportunity that we are seeing. So to give you guys an idea, the current state of affairs right now with COVID-19, with a lot of the isolation and stuff, it has increased the number of e-commerce transactions that are happening worldwide by a lot, by a factor of 5, pretty much. And so before COVID-19, we were in a place where we had 1 out of 10 transactions in the world being done online. And that means that 9 out of 10 transactions were still being done in a physical store. And then today, although we don't have the correct numbers yet because the year is not done, what we are seeing just from the volume of clients that we're getting is that there is about 5 out of 10 transactions that are done online at the moment. Companies like Shopify, which is an e-commerce platform, regularly put out information about their volumes of transactions that are going through their platform. And since COVID-19 has started, what we are seeing is that there are Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals pretty much every single day. And so for those of you that don't know, Black Friday and Cyber Monday tend to be the 2 days that are pretty much the busiest days of the year. And so e-commerce merchants tend to prepare the entire year to get to the last quarter and be able to have these sales for Cyber Monday and Black Friday. Now we're seeing those types of volumes and transactions pretty much every single day. It's a huge increase, and that's why the opportunity with e-commerce is extremely lucrative at the moment, and it can be something that a lot of you can actually take advantage of. And whether it was because of COVID-19 or not, e-commerce was already on the rise. And so this is a chart. And so you can see here that it's a chart that shows the e-commerce sales done in the US as well as the in-store sales. As you can see here, every single year, there have been an increasing amount of sales that have been done online, whether that's through Amazon or Shopify or any other means. And we only have the numbers up until 2019 because obviously the 2020 is not done yet, but we are expecting a significant, that little orange line that you see there on the screen, for 2020, it's going to be significantly larger. And so getting in early in e-commerce and selling stuff online is definitely the right thing to do at this time. And it can actually help a lot of businesses out there, especially if you have a brick and mortar store and you were forced to close down your store. Definitely look at what you can do to sell your products online. And obviously, if you were looking to open a brick and mortar store or a business like that, you probably want to go the online route first, just because in most places right now are under quarantine, and kind of have to deal with the current situation of things. Um, and so jumping right into it, what should you take into consideration when you start an e-commerce business? And from helping a lot of clients over the last 3 years, one of the things that we've noticed is that one of the most common mistakes that people make is that they jump steps. And so here I've kind of brought it down to 3 simple steps that anyone that wants to start an e-commerce business should go through in order to ensure that their e-commerce business is going to convert and that they're going to get the return on investment that they're looking for. So the 3 pillars of e-commerce to get started with e-commerce are: number 1, your product. You clearly want to put a lot of time and effort into sourcing the right product. We'll get right into that right after the slide. Number 2 is your content. You want to make sure that your content is on point and that it really relates to your clients and to your ideal customer. And number 3 is your conversion. And today in the presentation, I'm going to show you a whole bunch of tricks that you can do and that you can take advantage of in order to make sure that the conversions on your store are as high as possible. But first, we have to start with product. And so whenever you're thinking of sourcing a product or starting to sell something online, you kind of have to think about the current state of things, right? Sourcing a product, it could be done in a number of different ways, right? There are people who use this fulfillment method called dropshipping, for example. I'm just going to go to the slide and come back. And dropshipping is basically a method that allows you to not hold inventory yourself, but have inventory being sent directly to your client from your supplier. Now, that might sound like it's a good idea. However, at the moment, a lot of those products are being supplied out of China. And because of the current state of affairs, there seem to be very long wait times for a lot of those suppliers. And so one of the things that I can advise to anybody that's looking to start an e-commerce business today is that they should try to have a really close relationship with their supplier. Whether their supplier is in China or whether their supplier is closer to where they are, definitely look at having a close relationship with them so that you can, if there are any issues or any delays, you can be on top of it and you can let your clients know as well. And clients tend to appreciate that in most cases, or the customers that are going to buy from you. The other thing is also, first of all, have a really close relationship with your supplier. But the second thing is figure out your fulfillment times and your fulfillment structure, right? And so fulfillment is the act of actually sending out a product and having the client receive it. And so obviously with drop shipping, that's a fulfillment method. Like I said before, the supplier sends the product directly to the customer. But with something like, like this wallet, for example, the product is small enough so that you can actually hold inventory yourself. And so that might be a good way to kind of get around a lot of the issues that come with drop shipping and long wait times, for example. And so if you hold the inventory yourself and you ship it out yourself from your house or from a warehouse, that usually gives you more control over the fulfillment system. And the other thing is also keep in mind that do-it-yourself is on the rise right now. And so if you're not sure what kind of product you want to sell, and you're not sure, what supplier you want to go to, one of the things that you might want to take into consideration is making products yourself. We have seen a ton of customers doing extremely well nowadays with homemade face masks, soaps, food items, anything that they can pretty much repackage and do and make on their own and send out to their customers who order from them from their online store. Now, just going back to this slide here for the dropshipping model, obviously the dropshipping model, it is a model that it can be lucrative for some people, and it's really good to learn e-commerce because you're not tied into having to hold all that product, and you're kind of selling like one product at a time, and your supplier is taking care of the rest, and they're holding a lot of that. And so, in order to learn e-commerce, dropshipping tends to be one of the main ways to do it. However, one of the things that we've realized is that because dropshipping, especially from websites like AliExpress, where anybody has access to that product. Because there is that barrier of entry is not there, there tends to be a lot more saturation in the market a lot faster. And so let's say that you find a product that's amazing on aliexpress.com, and you want to sell it, you build an online store, you get some ads out there, people start buying it. What usually is going to happen is that other people are going to notice that the product is doing really well, and they're going to want to take part of them in that endeavor. And so what tends to happen in that case is that a lot of people flood the market with the same product, and things tend to get saturated over time. And that's because there is no barrier of entry to selling that product. So ideally, if you do want to start drop shipping, it would be a good idea to look for suppliers that are less well known and that are closer to you, as well as third-party logistics warehouses. And so if you work with a third-party logistics warehouse, for example, what they're going to do is that they will basically hold a number of inventory for you at their warehouse, and they will send it out for you, and you pay kind of a fee to hold the inventory there, and you can work with your supplier to get the inventory to the warehouse. And that would create a little bit of a barrier of entry, because when you order things in bulk, you get a cheaper price, and so you're able to offer the product at a cheaper rate. But also, if you need anything done, any customizations made to the product, I know I tend to order backpacks quite a bit. Usually suppliers are happy to make those customizations, such as adding your logo to the product or any sort of extra features that you want, as long as you order a large enough amount. So they tend to have minimum order quantities, and through those minimum order quantities, you can actually get a lot of customizations, and those customizations end up being a barrier of entry that a lot of people don't have access to, or right away, right? And so all of these things can kind of put you ahead of the game. If you are looking to get into e-commerce just to learn e-commerce, definitely dropshipping, especially from AliExpress, it is the right way to go, because it's not going to cost you a lot of money. And so you can use apps such as Oberlo and Spocket on the Shopify platform, for example. These are apps that connect you directly with suppliers. And if you guys want to know a little trick to find really good suppliers, definitely go to Fiverr and look for them. That's what I do. So there are a ton of sellers on Fiverr that will do a lot of that research for you, and they will actually scrape the internet to find suppliers and products that you can actually sell. And so usually Fiverr is a pretty good place to start, especially with things like this. Now, the difference between Oberlo and Spocket, super quickly, it's just that Oberlo tends to find suppliers that are based in China through AliExpress, whereas Spocket tends to find suppliers that are based in the US. And so the products might be a little bit more expensive, but shipping time is a lot shorter. And you can have that close relationship with the supplier that you're looking for. Now, just super quick housekeeping. Every time you guys see something like this, a little icon on my slides, I'm going to be talking about an app, and it does represent an app. So if you have any questions about that app, do feel free to drop it in the chat, and I'll be able I'll be happy to speak about that later on. So that would be when it comes to product, obviously, take care of your supplier, your fulfillment, and pretty much everything that has to do with making sure that the client's experience after they've ordered the product is as clean as possible and as optimized as possible. The second thing, then the second pillar of an e-commerce business is really content, and a lot of people tend to skip this step, and that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people make. So I mean, think about it, right? You found a great product online, you want to sell it, you want to build a brand around it, but usually what people tend to do is that they go and they start an online store for it after they found the product. There is a step in between those two things. You do need to get content done and content made. Your content for your product is going to determine how successful your product will be, because it's going to actually connect with the audience that you're trying to connect with, and the targeted audience that is looking for this product, or that will be the ideal buyer for it. And so one of the things that you want to do is you really want to invest in brand. You're not just selling a product for the sake of selling a product. In most cases, you do want to build a brand around it. You do want to build a vision and a message, because that's ultimately what buyers are going to be looking for. The dropshipping model has now been around for, I don't know, probably like 10 years. Or maybe even longer than that in its own form. But buyers nowadays, our data shows that people are used to seeing dropshipping stores, and dropshipping stores tend to be stores that don't have that much custom content, and people can usually tell when it's a dropshipping store. And so we've actually seen that dropshipping stores that don't take the content into account, they either don't succeed or they just don't have as high conversions as they could have. And to give you guys an idea, we've helped over 900 clients in the last 3 years. More than half of those needed new content made. And that was like the mistake. So if ever you do have an e-commerce business that you've started and you're not getting sales and you don't understand why you're not getting sales, 80% of the time it's probably going to be because of your content. And so one of the things that you want to make sure is that the images on your store are as clean as possible and that they are as consistent as possible. And so, you know, another thing that you can go to Fiverr for, I do this all the time. There's a ton of Fiverr sellers that will actually help you out with your images. And so you can send them a sample of the product and they will take several images. As you can see here on the slide, we have a few examples of that. We have some lifestyle images. You know, this girl kind of wearing this Chanel sweater. We have some sneakers here and some bags. These are the types of images that work really well and that connect with your audience. And you do want to invest on making sure that those images are optimized and as clean as possible. If you don't have the opportunity to or the time to be able to do something like that, one of the things that I've done, which is a little bit of a hack, is I've actually taken the photos myself. So most cell phones nowadays have great cameras. And so you can actually take a lot of those photos, especially the lifestyle photos yourself. And then you can go to platforms such as Fiverr in order to make those photos retail ready. So you can actually hire graphic designers and e-commerce specialists who can help you with that process. And even if you don't go that route, there are other ways to do that as well. So here's another app that you can install within the Shopify ecosystem, but it's called Pixie. And Pixie is actually available on every e-commerce store. So not just Shopify, but also the other platforms, which we'll get right into. And basically this is what Pixie does, right? It takes your image and then it optimizes it for you. So they'll remove the background if that's what you want, they'll lighten it up, and they'll make sure that everything is as clear as possible. Images tend to be one of the really big important parts of content. And so you want to make sure that your images, as well as your videos, are really on point. And next, we really want to talk about conversion. So now you found a product, you've got great content going. Now you have to create a conversion funnel. And a conversion funnel is essentially the journey that your client is going to go through before they actually purchase from you. And the way that we build that funnel is through your online store. And so, you know, you have to design the store with conversion in mind. And I'll show you guys how to do that a little bit later on in the presentation. But every single decision that you make as an e-commerce designer has to take conversion into account. Conversion is the act of of purchasing from your store. And so you want to make sure that there is no friction and there is nothing distracting the client from actually purchasing from you. And design is a huge part of that. Design allows you to take your client through the journey that you want them to take before purchasing your product. And then the other thing that you really want to make sure is that you are tracking the user behavior on your store. Now, conversion is not a set it and forget it kind of thing, right? As traffic starts coming to your store, you're going to have to track that user behavior in order to understand how to make in order to be able to analyze the data and understand how to make the decisions going forward on what kind of things you're going to be updating and upgrading about your store in order to get those higher conversions. And so I'll show you guys a few tricks to do that as well later on. And so definitely track the user behavior. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is that your online store is a sales funnel. And so, like I said before, a sales funnel is essentially the journey that your client is going to go through before they purchase from you, from the moment they land on your homepage and they find out about your brand to the moment that they purchase from you. Now, if you look at the slide, you can see that there are 4 stages to this conversion funnel, and every top stage is bigger than the one below it because of the amount of people that you have in every stage. And so, for example, in the awareness stage, these are people that are just finding out about you and finding out about your brand. Let's say you have 100 people in there, there are going to be a few that are just going to drop off. It's just it's the law of averages. You will lose a few people because they're just not going to be interested. But some of those people will be interested. So let's say you have 100 people in the awareness stage and you end up with 50 moving on to the interest stage. Now, these people are really looking into your products. They're looking into everything that has to do with your brand. And they might even go all the way to your product page and even add the product to cart. Then out of those 50 people, you might end up having 25 that will actually go into the desire stage. So at this point, they've actually added the product to the cart. They sometimes go on all the way to the checkout to check if there are any taxes being charged, to check if shipping is free, and these types of things. And even at that point, you're going to lose some people. So even if they get to the point where they add all of their information and their shipping, a lot of times people do that just to see what the final price will be, and you might end up losing a few people at that crucial checkout point. And so from desire, at that point, people will go into the action stage. And so let's say that you end up with 5 people in the action stage. These are the people who have actually purchased from you and that you will be fulfilling products for. Um, you can basically, once you have actions coming through, you can basically figure out what your conversion rate on the funnel is. And so if you have 100 people in the awareness stage and 5 people in the action stage, that means that your conversion rate on this funnel is 5%. And because the journey that people are going to take is optimized and standardized and it's always the same, you'll be able to get that conversion rate and invest more into putting more people in the awareness stage in order to double and triple your revenue and scale from that point on. So the first step that you have to do for conversions is figure out how to get people through that journey in a way that it is converting at a high level. Most e-commerce stores convert at a 1 to 3%. Some e-commerce stores that are really good will convert at a 5 to 6% as well. And so you want to make sure that you're driving a lot of traffic and that you're optimizing everything from the product to the content to the actual store conversions in order to be able to scale. And so in this example, for example, if we have those 5 people buy products from you and each one of those products is $1,000, now you know that every time you put 100 people in your funnel, you end up with $5,000. And so if you want to put more people in your funnel, like say you put 200 people, you end up with about the same with the conversion rate. So you can make $10,000 with 200, $15,000 with 300, and so on. So that was kind of just an example. So keep in mind that the concept of the funnel is based on the premise that if enough people see your offer, some of them will purchase. This is a mathematical and statistical formula. It is not a matter of whether it will happen or not. It will happen. You just have to figure out what you can optimize for it to happen much faster, as well as what you can do to optimize those conversions. And now the funnel that you see here on the slide is basically the theory around what a conversion funnel is. However, when you bring it to an online store, each one of these parts kind of translates to a page on the store. And so, for example, for your awareness stage, that's really your landing page or your home page, right? That's where people are finding you. That's where people are figuring out what your product is. And then once they go into the interest stage, that's your product page, right? They go into the product page to look at all the information about the product, the price, if there's different variants and stuff. And once they add it to the cart, that's when they go into the desire stage. So it shows that they're actually interested in the product and that they're considering buying it. And once they purchase, that's really what we were talking about here, the action that you want people to take. And so you want to keep that in mind. It's the structure of your business and it's the structure of your store. When people talk about building a business, they use that word building for a reason. Maybe that's not the reason, but this is the way that I see it, because it really feels like you're building a house. And if you were building a house, you wouldn't go into the build without knowing the structure of the house. You need to know how many floors are going to be in the house. You need to know where the stairs are going to be, how tall the roof is going to be, and you won't be able to build the functional house unless you know the structure. And it's the same exact thing with an online store. You need to keep the structure in mind so that you can always identify where the issues are in your journey and you can optimize for them going forward. I'll show you guys how to do that as well. And so the next logical thing that comes from that, it's really what platform you should choose in order to sell your product. And nowadays, there's a ton of platforms out there, but there's 2 major types of e-commerce platforms. There are the SaaS-based e-commerce platforms. So SaaS is software as a service. And then there are the open source e-commerce platforms. So here we have 2 examples of 2 of these types of platforms. I actually developed, well, here at Startup Slang, we developed for both platforms, but we specialize in Shopify. And so Shopify is a SaaS-based e-commerce platform with something like a Shopify, you basically pay a monthly or yearly cost to have access to the entire platform through a cloud hosted service. There are pros and cons to both types of these platforms, but with Shopify, for example, you don't need any coding, you don't need any web hosting whatsoever, because everything is taken care of for you. And even the back end of the security aspect of things, it's all taken care of for you. So you can pretty much just pay the usual amount that you would pay for Shopify, and get started just within a few hours. The other great part about Shopify is that they actually have some of the best support system in the industry. So Shopify has something like 5,000 support people. They're there pretty much 24/7 to help their over 1 million merchants now. And so those are some of the great things about Shopify and SaaS-based platforms. A few other SaaS-based platforms out there could be like BigCommerce, for example, very similar. But Shopify tends to be the one that's the most popular at the moment. Also because the entire dropshipping culture kind of came out of using Shopify for that kind of stuff. And then on the other hand, you have platforms such as WooCommerce, which are open source e-commerce platforms. And so the thing about open source e-commerce platforms that's really great is that it gives you absolute control over the entire business. And so to give you guys an idea, on Shopify, you have to work within the limitations of Shopify because Shopify optimizes things according to the best practices that they found. However, if you wanted to do something a little bit different, you wouldn't be able to do that on Shopify because you don't have access to the backend. And in a lot of cases, depending on the tier that you're on, the pricing tier that you're on with them, you're also not going to have access to all of the features of the platform. And so one of the things that I say here, for example, is things like your checkout customization. Those types of things would be a lot easier to do on a WooCommerce store than they would be on a Shopify store, just because it's only available to Shopify Plus clients, and Shopify Plus clients tend to be enterprise clients who are paying over $2,000 a month to have access to the platform. And the checkout customization allows you to add extra elements to your checkout in order to help people go to towards that conversion point at that crucial final moment when they're ready to hit buy and they've already entered all their information. So very, very good feature that a lot of e-commerce stores would need. And on Shopify, you need to be on the enterprise level. However, on something like a WooCommerce, you can pretty much take care of that yourself. And you can also avoid a lot of the recurring charges on WooCommerce. So Shopify will charge you every single month and they will charge you every single year. However, WooCommerce, you don't need to do that because you're managing everything yourself. So you're actually hosting the entire thing yourself. And you can, because of that, you don't have to pay monthly, you don't have to pay yearly or anything like that, but you definitely do have no support. So you're pretty much on your own at that point. And then the other thing is that it also allows for higher scalability and customizations of the website because you don't have a lot of those limitations that you would have with a SaaS-based platform. Now, there are a lot of cons as well to these two, but before we get into that, let's talk about price a little bit. And so on Shopify, for example, you have three main pricing tiers. It starts at $29, and then the last tier is at $299. And if you're a larger company, you're making over $1 million a year. At that point, you can get on Shopify Plus, which is $2,000 a month. Now on Shopify Plus, you definitely have a lot more features like that checkout customization, which usually tends to be for larger merchants. And so, like I said, you need to basically be paying every single month, and every single app that you install as well will also have a cost associated with it as well. Whereas on WooCommerce, you usually have a fixed cost, which is your hosting, your domain, things like this. And then you have a whole bunch of variable costs, which could be plugins and anything else that you want to install onto your WooCommerce store. The thing about WooCommerce, though, is that this on the security aspect of things, you are kind of on your own. And so that's kind of the difference between the two platforms. You need to be a lot more technical. You need to have a lot more technical skills in order to run a WooCommerce store compared to Shopify. And so we actually do a ton of migrations from open source e-commerce platforms over to SaaS-based e-commerce platforms like Shopify, specifically because the merchants are sick of having to deal with having to go to a developer every time they need a change done. So open source e-commerce platforms tend to be not as maintainable and not as easy to run as SaaS-based platforms. The other thing is that obviously you have no customer support at all. So Shopify gives you a ton of customer support, but WooCommerce doesn't. So you're kind of on your own there, and most of the time you want to be able to work with a developer who's really used to working with you. That could bring up costs quite a bit, because every single time that you need that support, you have to pay an extra person. Whereas on Shopify, it's included with every plan. You get access 24/7 support. And like I said, it's some of the best in the industry. Um, and then, like I said, in terms of like site management and security, you have to take care of everything by yourself on WooCommerce, whereas on Shopify, it's kind of taken care of for you. On Shopify, some of the cons are also that if you need customizations made, you will need to work within the limitations of the platform. So there are just certain things that are just not possible on Shopify without several apps or even developing your own app. Whereas on WooCommerce, those types of customizations tend to be a little bit simpler. Um, so this is one of the things that I kind of want to show you as an example of those customizations. So if you look at the Shopify standard checkout, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen, if you have bought from a Shopify store before, this is what the standard checkout looks like. Very standard, right? Like there's nothing that's so crazy about it. However, if you get on Shopify Plus, and if you want to have extra features added to this checkout, you can make it look like this, which is essentially the enhanced checkout on Shopify. So you can see the difference between this and between this. There is a lot of stuff here that's added, such as trust badges here to show that there's a satisfaction guarantee, that you can track your order, and everything that has to do with the actual payment is also there and easy for the client to see. So by the time they are on this page, one of the biggest friction increasing things to conversion is really having to add all of your information here. And so just to be able to see like the final price and things like that. And so adding all of these extra features kind of helps the client along, knowing that they're well supported through that checkout process. The other thing is that you can also brand your checkout if you have access to Shopify Plus. And branding your checkout, as you can see, you can put your company's colors and you can do all of that, and it looks way better than a normal checkout. So like I said, if you wanted to do that on Shopify, you need to be on the higher tier. On a WooCommerce store, it is a lot easier and simpler to do something like that. However, you need very specific technical skills that not a lot of people might have. And so that's why we usually tend to go with Shopify. We are a Shopify agency, so obviously we are biased when it comes to that. But we've seen a huge amount of success for our merchants being on Shopify. And that's, again, because of the ease of maintainability. When we build a store for our merchants are able to run the store themselves, and they don't have to come back to us every single time. It's pretty simple. There's a very user-friendly kind of interface there. And there is also a growing number of apps within the ecosystem itself. And so more than half of Shopify's revenue actually comes from its app ecosystem. And the apps on Shopify are built through companies such as us. So Startup Slang actually builds apps for Shopify. And so think of it as a number of companies that are basically making the technology better by building new features for the platform. And that's really one of the biggest strengths of Shopify, is that you're not just tied to Shopify as a company in order to get a lot of those features. There are millions of people out there that are making apps in order to make Shopify even better and make commerce even better for everyone. And then obviously there's the worldwide support, like I said. But the other thing that I also want to stress is that Shopify is not just an online store builder. A lot of people might be wondering, why are there different pricing plans? Why is it $29 and $79 and $299? What's the difference between these? If you Google it, you can actually find that you get different features with each pricing plan. And so with the higher pricing plan, especially the $79 one and $299 one, you can have access to features such as Shopify POS, which will allow you to sell in store. And everything gets connected to your online store. Now, to give you guys an idea, before we were working with Shopify, if we wanted to do things like connect the in-store system to an online system, that will probably be like a 6 to 7 month worth of development work, building an app that would allow us to make that connection. So Shopify has made it easy for merchants to do that with just the click of a button. So merchants that, like, I know merchants that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to make that connection, and Shopify just came into the market and completely overhauled that entire process. The other thing that's really complex is gift cards. So if you want to offer gift cards in your retail store as well as on your online store, it's incredibly difficult to link the two. And so Shopify has made it simple to be able to do that. And so keep in mind that Shopify is not just an online store builder, but it's an actual operating system for commerce. So they want to be pretty much everywhere where you're going to be selling online. That's the reason why you can manage everything that you need through your Shopify store, all of your inventory. And if you're selling on Amazon or eBay or Etsy or other marketplaces, you can also connect those marketplaces to the Shopify platform. And if you decide to sell in store or at pop-up shops or at farmers markets or anything like that, trade shows, Shopify POS is there to kind of support you in those moments when you can go out and sell your product to a larger audience. And so I want to give you guys an example of that, of a migration that we made from a WooCommerce store over to a Shopify store. And this is actually one of my Fiverr clients, one of my favorite Fiverr clients. It's a company out of New York called Quero Shoes. And Quero Shoes makes really high-end handcrafted shoes at an affordable price. And so here you have a picture of the founders of Quero, which I love. They're some of my best customers. There's Randy and his wife, and we also have Alvaro here, who run the company. And you know, the story of Quero is actually very cool. Randy is someone that is from New York. He traveled to Spain on vacation with his wife, and while he was there, he actually met Alvaro here, who is the young man that you see in the picture. And he met Alvaro, and they started talking, and he found out that Alvaro had a passion for making handcrafted shoes out of Spain, and that they really went out of their way to make sure that their shoes are as high quality as possible, everything from the leather to the stitching, and they were also offering a long-term support. Usually shoes like this can go for thousands of dollars, but they were able to offer it for just a fraction of the price. However, they came to me on Fiverr with a very specific problem. And that problem was that the current website that they were on, which was not a SaaS-based platform, it was an open source platform, was just incredibly difficult to maintain. Their company was growing and they were adding more and more people, and they couldn't have that technical knowledge be shared among everyone just because it's not everyone's forte. And so they wanted to move over to a platform that would be a lot easier to maintain. And Shopify was the right thing to do for them. And so obviously, I just kind of want to show you guys the journey that they went through in order to get on Shopify and sell and get us to help them sell their products. And so they actually followed the 3 pillars perfectly. They figured out the product, right? So Randy went down to Spain, met Alvaro, who was his supplier, and he found out that he can have all this product brought over in New York. As you can see here, there's a picture of their pop-up shops that they have in New York. And so now he had a very solid and close relationship with the supplier. Obviously, the supplier, Quero Shoes, also owns the actual manufacturing, and so that made things a lot easier. But the next thing that they did is they really focused on content a lot. And so they spent quite a bit of time and effort really making sure that the pictures of their shoes were really on point. And so you can see some of that here. They took some lifestyle photos. They took some photos of the actual images of the actual shoes on white background images. And then once they had the supplier figured out and they had the content figured out, that's when they came to us on Fiverr. And it was incredibly easy to work with them just because they had done a lot of the legwork before. And so they came to hire a professional to accelerate the conversion design of their store. And the content helped a ton in that design because conversion starts with design. And so you want to make sure that your content is as clean as possible in order to make sure that that conversion is as high as possible. And so, one of the things here that I can show you, especially on the Quero website, which if any of you want to check it out, is querohms.com. One of the things that we did is we made sure to follow some of the best practices when it comes to conversion on an e-commerce store. And so a rule of thumb is really the 3-second rule. So that means that if someone lands on your website, they should know exactly what you're selling within 3 seconds of being there. And there's a lot of people that don't get that right. And if you don't get that right, you'll run the risk of actually losing quite a few people as they're navigating through your store, or they might even navigate away. And so here you can see that there is a slide that shows the front page of the Quero shoes website. And in that hero banner, we put a very nice picture of their shoes so that people know exactly what it is that Quero does. Quero sells handmade shoes. And you can see that we've also written handmade shoes in the logo up above so that people don't have any sort of confusion on what Quero does. The other thing that you want to really watch out for is your loading speed. You tend to lose people for every second that you have um, the website loading. And so you want to make sure that the images are as optimized as possible, that everything is loading at a fast enough rate on your store in order to drive those conversions a lot faster. It needs to be a seamless experience. So think of it this way. When a client comes to your store, the only thing that you want them to think about is adding the product to the cart and going through the checkout process. So everything else is going to take them away from that, and it's going to distract them from that. And so you want to minimize the distractions as much as possible. The loading speed is one of those distractions. If people are waiting for things to load, they're just going to be wondering why the site is taking so long to load, and they're just not going to be as committed to the actual purchase flow as you'd like them to be. And so, taking that into consideration, let's look at the product page, right? So this was the home page. So if you remember our funnel, this would be the awareness stage when people come onto the home page and they really look at what Quero does. And then eventually, if they go through that funnel from awareness to interest to desire, they're going to end up on the product page. And you can see here that we've actually optimized their product page to the bone. And so one of the things that we did is we made sure that everything was as accessible as possible. So the images are really big. People can see the quality of the shoes. And then there is a step-by-step guide on how to actually order it, but without telling you how it works. And so you can see here that all you have to do is choose the color, then choose the size, and then the next logical thing is add to cart. So you can do that all there. One of the things that we did that was really important here is that we hid all the distractions that people have. So if you look at the description here on the bottom, as well as the delivery time and exchanges and returns, all of those policies need to be on a product page because it helps the client. However, we close them within tabs so that clients that don't need to see that, they're not going to get distracted from it, and they will go towards the add to cart more than that. However, if there are clients that are not sure yet, then at that point, they can go towards the description and read more about it. And the description is also made in a way to help them go back to the add to cart and add that product to cart to go towards the conversion point. And so you want to make sure that there are no distractions whatsoever on the Quero website or on any website that you're on. And then the other thing that you want to keep in mind is that there is a tech stack of Shopify apps that you can use in order to increase your conversion. And so these are some of the apps that I like the best and that I found are some of the highest converting apps within the Shopify ecosystem. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to run through all of them, but you can definitely Google a bunch of these and really see what they do. I'll talk about some of them so that you can see just on a high level what they do. So things like Spently, for example. Spently allows you to add extra upsells and marketing material to the thank you email every time somebody purchases from you. So that means that if somebody purchases from you, that email where they get with their order information, you can actually put an extra discount code in there for a future order. That's been shown to actually increase the likelihood of people becoming repeat buyers. And the other thing is you can also put extra upsells. So, hey, you bought these shoes, that's great. Have a look at these pants as well. And so we've seen over the 900 clients that we worked with in the last 3 years, we've seen an increase of about 40% in conversions when we install Spently on a store. So Spently is definitely something that you want to have in order to optimize those transactional emails and help you out with that repeat buyer. Then you have things such as Route. Now, one of the things that people don't realize is that more than 50% of transactions done online today are done on Amazon. And so the experience that people have with Amazon is pretty much the standard. Like that's what people are used to. And so because of that, you want to have apps like Route, which make it super simple to have returns and basically shipping insurance. So one of the experiences that Route creates is that if there is a problem with the item, once it gets to the store or once it gets to the client, um, the client doesn't really have to do anything like getting in touch with you or anything. He basically just goes on his order confirmation emails, clicks one button for route. And what route will do is that it will actually place another order on the online store on behalf of the client to be able to send a new product to the client. Now that's good for the client because the client doesn't have to worry about the entire process of getting in touch with customer service and returning the product. Just like on Amazon, it's very simple to do it. And on the merchant side of things, you actually don't have a loss from lost and stolen packages because Route will insure the package. And so they will just place another order. So it's as if you have another order. So it's actually extremely beneficial to have an app like Route on an online store. And then we have Ava, which is very sophisticated pop-ups. So you can have different pop-ups to lock certain parts of the website to only certain clients. You can have pop-ups for upsells, cross-sells, all sorts of stuff. Ava, definitely a pretty amazing app. All of these apps, or most of these apps, tend to also have free tiers when you start, so you don't actually have to pay much just when you get started. But they do charge you a certain amount according to the number of transactions that you have. And so we have, other apps here like SMS Bump, which is, text message marketing. Smile, it allows you to create a reward system on your store. We have Looks, which is visual reviews, so it's reviews with actual photos in them, just like on Amazon. This works really well. And we also have Reconvert, which allows you to put extra upsells in the thank you page. So when somebody buys from you, there's a thank you page that comes up. So you can put extra upsells in there and extra offers in there. And then if they don't take that on, then they will move over to the Spently email where you can have upsells in there as well. And so it's really about hitting the client at different stages of their purchase flow in order to bring up your conversion rate and bring up the average order value. And then the last three apps that I have here, which is Google Analytics, Klaviyo email marketing automation, and Hotjar, these are really important apps because they allow you to track your user behavior. And so Hotjar actually creates videos of how people are using your website. So you can actually see where people are clicking and whether there is any confusion or whether there's anything that makes it difficult for them to go through your purchase flow. So Hotjar allows you to do that. Google Analytics, obviously, it allows you to track your users. And same thing with email marketing automation, especially for things like abandoned carts. There's a lot of people that go to online stores, they will add something to cart and then they will leave. Well, you want to make sure that you're retargeting those people with abandoned cart emails. And Klaviyo is one of the great apps that allow you to do that. Now, on average, on a Shopify store, you have about 6 to 15 apps. And so you want to make sure that those apps, those partnerships that you're working with are as useful as possible. And usually working with an expert like us here on Fiverr is a pretty good way of knowing which apps you should go for according to the industry that you're in, because we work with 900 clients and we've seen we have quite a bit of expertise when it comes to that. So all that to say, if ever you do want to optimize your conversions, definitely look at the app ecosystem within Shopify and look for some apps that can help you out. And these are some of them. You want to create an Amazon-like experience on Shopify, essentially. And so that's a little bit about Quero and what we were able to do with Quero. And so, Quero had pretty good success. We launched their store last April, so not this last April, but the one before that, in 2019. And now they are getting regular sales. They're growing their business. I think they're a team of 20 now in Spain and in New York. And Quero is super happy with everything that we've been able to do together. And so definitely take this into account. Remember, product, content, and conversion are the three pillars of an e-commerce store. And then the other thing is really what do you do after you have those things in place, right? You have product, you have content, you have conversion set up. The next thing is traffic, right? So you want to make sure to get that traffic coming to your store so that you can optimize as much as possible and that the conversion and all the work that you've done to make sure that your store is converting at a high level is paying off. And so to drive traffic to your store, there's a number of ways that you can do it. And really, there is a number of ways that you can do it. But the main ways to do it should follow the data that we're seeing today. And so, for example, if you look at the chart here, you can actually see that about 30.3% of traffic comes from paid traffic. So these are paid ads. These are services such as Google ads, Facebook ads. and any other ad platform where you have to pay in order to get those impressions. But more than 50% of all traffic online comes from search engines and search engine optimization. Now, the difference between the type of client that you're going to target with those two techniques is just the level of interest that they have. So if you're running paid ads, for example, especially on Facebook, most of the time that client is not going to have an interest in buying your product. You kind of like, they might fit the profile of the perfect person that will buy your product, but you kind of have to coach them into buying it through the ad and then through the actual website. And they're not necessarily looking for that at the moment. Whereas on a search engine or organic search, every single one of your clients is looking for that, right? So if you're selling bicycles, for example, on your online store, and you invest in SEO and or search engine optimization and everything that has to do with search, with organic search, at that point, you will be able to get quite a bit of traffic that is already looking for bikes. And so that traffic is warmer, and because it's a warmer traffic, you can actually convert them at a much higher level. On average, it takes between 3 to 4 times the amount of money to convert a cold lead than it does to convert a warm lead. And so that's money and time as well. And so you want to be able to analyze that content, analyze that traffic, and really make all of the course corrections that you need to make sure that that traffic is converting at a high level. And so there are a ton of services that you can use in order to drive that traffic. So as you can see here, I've kind of listed a few. You have social media marketing, you have Google Analytics and stuff, or Google Ads and things like that, as well as content marketing. And I just wanted to give you guys a resource in case you wanted to learn to drive traffic on your own. You definitely want to check out some courses on Fiverr Learn. And I take Fiverr Learn courses pretty much all the time. I love those courses, and I've learned a ton of stuff through them. I have even all of my staff members here at Startup Slang. We buy courses for them, and we make sure that they know everything about it. So on Fiverr Learn, you actually have some of the best courses in the industry, especially for Facebook ads. I've never seen a better Facebook ads course than the one in Fiverr Learn. So that one is really good. And especially like some of the SEO courses in there, and they're super affordable as well. So definitely check out Fiverr Learn if you want to learn all of the techniques to drive that kind of traffic. And to promote your store. And so all that being said, now I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the current state of affairs. And I think it's important for us to do that. We can talk about e-commerce all day long, but we have to talk about what's going on with COVID-19 and how that's affecting a lot of the industries around the world. If you're going to be getting into e-commerce today, you kind of want to take that into account. There are things such as social distancing now that have been implemented across societies in the world, and work from home has become the new reality for many people. And even after this COVID-19 kind of adventure that we're going through right now, there is going to be a real shift where companies that weren't working remotely, now that they've done it and now that they have the infrastructure to be able to do that, they are going to allow people to do that. And ultimately, people are just going to be ordering more stuff online, and the social distancing thing doesn't look like it's going to go away anytime soon. And so brands have to pivot in order to adapt to the current economy. And there are certain industries that are doing better than others, right? Industries such as healthcare, wellness, hygiene, and food items, as well as insurance brands, are doing way better than most other industries out there. And so I kind of want to show you guys this page. I hope you can see it. I know it's written a little bit small, but this is basically the industries that we've noticed that have seen an increase since the COVID-19 crisis has started. And so if you look here, obviously disposable gloves, there is an increase of up to 670% for that type of product. Obviously, I don't know how it is in other countries, but here in Canada, disposable gloves, we're trying to keep that for the healthcare providers and stuff like that. So we don't tend to sell those online just because the supply tends to be better used by healthcare providers. But you have a ton of other products that you can look at. Who would have thought that bread machines were going to be number 2 on the list? There is a 652% increase in sales of bread machines. And that, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like bread is something that you can't really stock up on. And people need bread all the time, and because they can't go outside, and they might as well just make their own bread. And so a lot of people bought a bread machine. Surprisingly, that was one of the first things that I bought when I went into isolation. So I've been guilty of that as well. And then other things that you can also look at is things like weight training, right? Like people can't go to the gym anymore. And so selling weights on a platform like Shopify could be pretty lucrative right now. And also other things that have to do with the current state of affairs. Any sort of food items here, you can see, pasta is up 249%, vegetables are up 238%, flour is up 238%, facial tissues, and all sorts of other stuff. Supplements are up there as well. People want to make sure that they're being taken care of. And obviously things related to the office or the home office. So things like computer monitors and office desks. There is an increase for these kinds of things because, people that had offices before, now they have to work from home, and they have to basically deck out their office to be able to work from home. And a lot of companies are actually buying monitors and desks and things like that for their employees. So that's really good. And so definitely keep that in mind when you're looking at getting a product, sourcing a product and selling that product. There are some industries that are doing better than others. And if there is an increase, there is also going to be a decrease. And so here are some of the industries that are having a decrease nowadays. These are probably the industries that you don't want to get into right now. So things like cameras, the camera equipment, camera bags, anything that has to do with that. People can't go outside, nobody's taking pictures. And so it's pretty difficult to do that. Anything that has to do with vacations, such as snorkeling equipment, all sorts of swimwear and things like that, they are on the decrease right now. Camping equipment is on a decrease. And anything that has to do with bringing people together, it's also on a decrease. So things like event and party supplies are probably not the right thing to sell right now. And anything, being anything that has to do with going outside, such as sunglasses and eyeglasses and things like that as well. And so keep that in mind, right? There are some industries that are doing better, and there are other industries that are doing worse. And so you want to make sure that you're putting a lot of thought into the product that you're going to be sourcing. And just a little bit more information on these things. Health and wellness, and this is just taking all of the health and wellness products together since the month started, or since April started, we've seen an increase of 219%, up from 193% in March. And so it is something that's increasing over time. And now because of Mother's Day, there seems to be quite a bit of an increase for health and wellness related products as well. You have anything related to the home. So furniture, obviously people are at home. They want to make sure that their home looks nice because that's where they're spending most of their time now. It's not work anymore. And so if you're selling home related products, there is an increase of about 27%. It's not huge right now, but it will likely go up as people stay home and they want to deck out their homes. Surprisingly, things like everyday fashion is not doing so well. And so if you're looking to sell clothing, or if you're looking to sell anything that has to do with fashion, probably not the right time right now. People are at home mostly. They're not dressing up. They're staying in their pajamas in a lot of cases and just working from home, not being able to go outside. And so everyday fashion is in a decrease right now. And then anything that has to do with food and drinks, also really, really important. Food and drinks is probably the biggest industry that we've seen in terms of growth. We have some of our clients that have been able to quadruple their revenue just within the last 2 or 3 months. So definitely worth it to make that investment if you are looking to sell a food product online and it's something that you can sell. And so the last thing I'd like to leave you guys with, if there's anything at all that you will retain from this presentation, is the 3 pillars of e-commerce. If you're looking to start an e-commerce store, remember you have to start with product, then you have to get the content done, and then you have to work on conversion, and traffic comes after that. And obviously keep in mind that here at Fiverr, all of the sellers on the platform will be more than happy to help you with your journey. And so you can come to me, you can come to other people if you want to start your e-commerce journey, and we will definitely be there to help you out, as we always do. Thank you so much. And now I'll leave it to Natasha.
Thank you so much, Damiano. That was amazing. And we got so much great feedback and so many questions. We're actually going to do a live Q&A in just a few moments. So anyone who can stay, feel free to stay on. I'll just note a few questions. I'll answer a few questions that came in whilst everyone's still here. So firstly, we are going to follow up. We've recorded this, so we're going to send not only the recording, but also the deck that Damiano just went over, as well as a guide that we've put together and a list of services. And for those of you that have already created your online business and are starting to think about how to market it, so we're going to also send you a link to a store that we've created that focuses on e-commerce marketing. So we'll add that in the follow-up. And like we mentioned before, feel free to pass that on to anyone that you think it will be relevant to. Some people asked, some people mentioned in the chat that they actually sell a service and not a product. And so just to let you know, we had a webinar last week that focused on taking your skill or your service online. And so if you go to the Q&A section, you'll see a link to that. Feel free to take a look and watch it. And just so everyone knows, we constantly have events. You can go to events.fiverr.com and keep up to date with all the new things and all the new webinars that we're adding. So Damiano, that was amazing. I really can't thank you enough. We got some great questions from the audience. So I'm going to pass it on to Marcy, who is going to kick us off.